My name is Sassy Nash. I'm the Educational Programming Coordinator here at the Dreamland. I was also part of the first storytelling group back in 2019 with some cool people. And I am so happy this show keeps going on. I've been part of it for a couple times more after that. And I was just like, just get me in there. I need to be part of this, so they let me do the intro. But this is a great show. Thank you, everyone, for coming and supporting the Dreamland. And our host, of course, is Bonnie Levison.
Big round of applause for Sassy because she is an amazing storyteller. And whether she likes it or not, I think she's been officially promoted to our producer, and so you will be seeing much more of her at this show. Welcome to Dreamland Storytelling. Who has been here before by raise your hands? Oh, thank you for coming back. And so then those of you, I think it's the other half of the room. How many, raise your hands, you've never been here before? Oh, good, you're in for a treat. So that also gives me a reason to explain to you what's happening here. I'm going to raise this up a little bit, sorry. So it is Dreamland Storytelling, but that does not mean we're going to sit in circle time and read a book to you, and you will not have a reenactor come and tell the story, a folktale of someone else. Those are all lovely stories, but that's not what this is. You're going to hear 6 people from our Nantucket community sharing stories from their lives, inspired by the theme, glass half full. And so whatever that means to you, and whatever it meant to them, it can mean so many different things to all of us. We thought that was appropriate because it is Wine Festival. I don't know if anybody here has been drinking all day long, but we do find an audience member that's had a little wine is always a happy audience member, so we're all for that. I haven't seen, anybody attended any Wine Festival events? That's it, I heard a wee. I love that. I was just saying, I haven't really noticed. I expected sort of bottles of champagne in the streets and all sorts of fun things, but that's not, I guess it happens behind closed doors or under tents. I guess that's how it goes. I actually was talking to Sassy, I think it was a few years back, I I had not been drinking, I happened upon the back of the tent at the White Elephant and walked in without paying, don't tell anybody, and did a full tour. It's the coolest thing. They have all these vineyards all around and you're just like, okay, I love that. So don't tell anyone I told you you could do that, but maybe there's a back flap there that you can get into. Anyway, it's always an amazing weekend in Nantucket. My goodness, we are the land of festivals, aren't we? It is really incredible. But this program was started, Josh Gray, are you back there? Josh Gray, our wonderful director of programming at this amazing theater that we love so much, our Island Jewel. Are we in year 4? I think we're in year 4 of this. So, and I don't know, for those of you who've never been here, I'm glad you found this tonight because this is always sort of an off-season event, and there's this incredible year-round community on this island, and I've had the privilege, yes, applause for this year-round community. And I discovered this concept, this art form of true first-person storytelling about 16 years ago, and I fell in love with it and in New York City, and I started teaching it and sharing my own stories, and I thought, what a great place for this type of event. This is this wonderful community, and so I've had this great honor of coming here in the off-season, and we do 3 or 4 shows in the off-season, and meeting people from all walks of life on this island and having them share stories. So I feel, I've been coming here all my life, and I feel like having this experience has made me even closer to this island. And I hope that's how you're going to feel afterwards. And one of the things actually that surprised me after all these shows is that we'll bring 5 or 6 people together. And I assume, because I come seasonally, I assume everybody knows each other. And they never do. It is incredible because people are busy here and they have their lives. And so it's also been an eye-opener, and it's really fun to have people share their stories and connect with each other as storytellers. So You are going to hear from 6 wonderful individuals from this island, and they are, as I said, inspired by this idea of glass half full. And so they'll tell sort of 7-8 minute stories. And I want to thank you all for filling out these audience forms. I was not really looking for lemonade recipes. It was a metaphoric question, but I'm glad for those, and I will keep them and cherish them. But I will be using those sort of throughout the evening as a palate cleanser between the stories. But when I was thinking of Glass Half Full and being here on Nantucket, I was reminded of a few years back. I guess there was a new path. I'm out in Sconset. And I sort of up on Bean Hill, and there's this opening, this parking area there just by Tom Never's entrance. And they created this new path to Alta Rock. And I had not been on it. A friend of mine said, let's take this path. Now it's November. I'm actually here for one of these wonderful shows. And she's like, let's take a walk and do this new path to Alta Rock. And we did. I mean, it's this gorgeous path, and you take it, through the moors. And there we are, it's November, and there's the sun is out, and crisp chill in the air, and it's a beautiful day, and I love it. I'm with nature, I'm at Alta Rock, and I'm looking around at the highest point on the island, which is like basically 6 inches above anything else. But there I am looking around, and with my dear friend, and we hear bang, 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 bang. And we realize it's the first day of hunting season. We are not in orange or yellow. We are in a lovely green, sandy-colored outfits. My heart stops. I'm not sure. I pretty much left my friend behind, didn't care. And I went for about, whatever it was, about a mile back to the Milestone Road in a full-on crouched position in record time. And why I say that this story reminds me of the Glass is Half Full is that I could have been killed that day. But what I learned is that I am an elite athlete when it is required of me. And that is a moment of looking at the world, that the glass is always half full. You can find those moments, people. So let's take a look at some of these audience answers. I'm sure we're going to have a wild ride here. Have you ever had to make lemonade out of lemons? I took my granddaughter to the park for a nice outing, and she loved the swing. So she's obviously a little girl. I put her in that, rubbery swing, the baby swing, and she kept her legs together so both legs went into one hole. Is that so? Can we all relate to that? It's like, what is wrong with children? Just, come on, both holes. Use both holes. They all went into the same opening. I tried to remove her from the swing to put her legs in the separate slots, and she was stuck. Try as I might, she could not budge, but thanks to the kindness of a stranger, we got her straighten out. I love that, and it reminds me of the reason I don't use pantyhose anymore. I will say no more. Have you ever had to make lemonade out of lemons? Yes, off a tree in my yard in Costa Rica. Well, we're bragging too, aren't we? That's awesome. And here's one, yes. Made lemonade because it was really hard to get rid of the seeds. It's negative and yet positive all at the same time. Don't know what to do with that one. We're going to do one more, and then we're going to get going. Okay. Sadly, it's a classic Nantucket story. Siblings inherit a family house. One wanted the money, the other wanted the house, and it was sold after 100 years in our family. But the right house became available, and this is the silver lining of it all, as this person calls it, and I bought it sight unseen. Happily ever after. I know. I think that's, can we get a group awe? Oh, I know. And that is such a great audience participation moment for me. I think it is time to start this show. So what you're going to do, it's really scary. People are going to get up here and they are going to share their truth. These are true stories from their lives. And I think they're all going to be a little different, but it's really brave, and it's a real gift to the audience. So I know that you will give them a lot of love. So, are you ready for your first storyteller? Even more energy. Are you ready? Please welcome Holly Finigan.
All right. Hi. I'm Holly. And I'm a middle child. Oh, God, it's so depressing, right? Glass half empty from the start. We gotta start that one over, all right? Let's do that again. All right. Hi. I'm Holly. And I'm a middle child. Yeah, right? Like middle children. It's a cool thing. At a very young age, we are taught to look at things from a glass half empty or a glass half full. And why I'm especially excited to talk about this is that I don't have that story about the family fighting and money and, a sibling wants one thing and the other one wants another, and then we get the dream house here. But Nantucket has been like my big home and my moment of being an only child. So I'll get back to that in a moment. But what I want to tell you guys a little bit about is about what it was like to be a middle child. Got any out there? I'm sure we do. There we go. Awesome. So here we go. So what was it like for me to be a middle child? Well, I wasn't a middle child, right? For a bit. I was a baby. That was fun, right? I was a baby, and I was a baby while I was the baby. And then I became a toddler. And at that point, when I became a toddler, I was about to turn 3, and then my mom had her 3rd child. 3 girls. Wonderful. It was right around Mother's Day as well, as my younger sister was taking my mother away from me. So what happened is my dad had something. It's really crazy. It's going to be in the Smithsonian soon. It was called a video camera. Do you guys remember that? It's 37 years ago in May 1986, and he shows up with this video camera, and he is going to video my sister Christina, my older sister Christina, and I meeting our sister Sana for the first time, which is beautiful if you're Christina, because she is very welcoming, and she was very excited to meet Sana, and that was good for camera. What was probably not so good for camera was the magazine that got hurled at the baby, and the one with the good arm, that was me, and I was pissed. I didn't have the words, but I did have ability to act out, which is a trait of middle child syndrome. Ever heard of it? Right? What happens, these children act out. So that was my first acting out, which was also on video, just like this one. Great. So, and then afterwards, maybe like a year later, I was still acting out. But actually, this was really a little different. I was going on hunger strike. So my mom had to take me to the doctor to talk to the doctor about how I wouldn't eat anything. And during that time, as I was acting out, the doctor looked at my mother and said, "Mom, does she drink juice?" My mom was like, yeah. She's actually a fan of Moth's apple. And so he said, okay, just keep feeding her that. So there it was, my first juice cleanse. I've always been a bit ahead of the times. So the times, though, as times continued, my family kept expanding. And 30 years ago, next week, my dad got remarried and brought in what is called a stepmother. Such a weird word, right? Because it comes with so much negativity. It's a very glass empty word to me. This woman is amazing. Her name is Terry, but I call her now Mother Teresa. But at the time, she was a bartender that my dad had met. She was a beautiful blonde and a bride-to-be, and with a bit of a belly because she was 5 months pregnant. And 4 months later, on October 1st, she gave birth to the first son for my father, which was great because my dad is John Bernard Finigan Jr., and this was John Bernard Finigan III, or aptly called Jack's son, Jackson. So, with that, as that came in, there was no video of me meeting Jackson because I didn't show up to meet him, because I didn't go down that weekend. I let both of my sisters go down to meet this half-brother that I could half care about, because what happened was I had a sleepover that weekend with my friend Aaron, and I wanted to make sure that I got to that sleepover because we were going to a bead store, and I was going to go to this place, Jumpstart Gemstone, and get all these beads and start my entrepreneurial beading business, and that was more important than a brother. So that is what's called middle child syndrome, when they pick their friends over their family, okay? Not my proudest moment, but during that time, The family kept expanding. Another brother showed up 14 months later, Brendan. Wonderful. What's up, Brendan? He's a great baby of the family. And then I would spend the most of my high school trying to get new families. Started with camp. Went away for camp. Made camp my family. Started those new little houses and those bunks. That became my home. Then I went to nanny for a family, and I loved them. I thought maybe they would adopt me if I was a really good big sister to these little girls. And then I went to college, and at college, I joined a sorority house. Another family, right? New family tree. I had a big sister, a little sister in the sorority. And that big sister, 18 years ago, invited me to come down and live with her family on the island of Nantucket. And 18 years ago, this week, I was like, you know I love living other people's families. I will definitely come down to that island. And I started bartending on the island of Nantucket. And when I arrived to this gray lady, it was very interesting because I was going through a rebirth, a resurgence, an understanding of myself as an only child with the gray lady as my mom. And during this time, I was bartending at the White Elephant, and someone came in very early on in my days, and she said, you know, islands are for finding yourself or losing yourself. I had to spend the last 18 years seeing both sides of that. Half full, finding yourself, half empty, losing yourself, right? That's what happens out here. We get all these chances to rebirth ourselves here on Nantucket. So I wrote in little black books, and I blogged, and I bartended. I worked in restaurants, retail, and real estate. My parents would, Mother Teresa, my father, they would come out, and they would say, my dad would come here, and he'd say, oh my God, my daughter is a rock star. And I'd be like, yes, seen, hooray, middle child, I'm out there. Or my sisters would come out here, and they'd be like, oh, we're Holly's sister. And I'd be like, oh my God, amazing, once again. Here we are, I'm seen, you're here, you see me. My brothers would come out, they'd use my name at all the bars, at all the wrong times. I'd be like, okay, please don't do that, but okay, thank you, Holly's sister, Holly's brother, okay. But what was really beautiful about this is it gave me this chance to really start seeing myself and using this island as a chance to rebirth myself. And it's been amazing, and I love this place, so much so, I wear it on my heart. Thanks to my girl Karen over at Eye of the Needle. But this is about second chances, right? I gave myself that chance to introduce myself twice as a middle child. So I want to tell you one more second chance, okay? So, that brother that I told you guys about, he's going to be 30 in October. And him and his wife right now, they're expecting their first kid. It's due basically on his birthday. And if I have this beautiful second chance as the second child to go back down there and show up for that baby girl in October, and I can tell you, I got that second chance to show up for that baby boy too. So here's to second chances. Here's to all the middle kids out there. Thank you.
Holly Finigan. Holly is an author, a meditation leader, and a chakra healer. She uses her gift of authentically relating to empower human beings to live out their holy truth while remembering who they really are. She does this through breathwork, workshops, one-on-one work, and her book, Wholeheartedly, The One You Want to Find Is You. So look for that book, because she's just published it. Thank you so much, Holly. That was beautiful. I am a middle child, and I can relate to a lot of the things that you said, but I have to say I'm very excited today because, as it happens, my two cousins are here on the island, and we have a lot of family on this island, and my cousin Brad is here, and he is also a middle child. I was listening to her story, Brad, and our grandmother would invite us, just the two of us, because she understood that middle children sometimes were a little forgotten. And she created these sort of special trips for my cousin Brad. Do you remember those? Right? How could you forget? And so we had these special trips. So we were lucky enough to, I think, feel seen. But I definitely could relate to your story in that way. So I feel like this is sort of a double blessing. It's kind of the cool thing about storytelling for me is that you hear someone else's story, but then you start thinking about your own experiences. And it's really cool. We don't live each other's lives, but inside we're all a ball of emotions and we're all humans. And so different stories, but same, we can start connecting with each other through our stories. Okay, let's read a few more of your comments. Let's see what we got here. No particular order. Oh, okay. Have you ever had to make lemonade out of lemons? Yes, I came expecting wine festival tonight. This was not wine festival, evidently. So they are here for entertainment. Now, whoever you are, you will not get a buzz on, but you will be tasting the joy of beautiful stories. We're going to look at it that way. Okay, my first love was a real pill. I love that word, a real pill. Isn't that my mother used that word all the time. But I stuck it out, and that is so romantic. That first week. Despite heads turning, day in, day out, like waves overlapping, tumble, gasp, swim. At year 8, I swam to shore. Wow, that's poetry. Okay, one more. Lemonade out of lemons. The power went out one night due to the storm. Candlelit dinner. Now that is right. Do we love that? Oh my God. Many years ago, I don't know if anybody was here for this, but you remember when Bartlett's Farm was going to be developed and they had to raise a lot of money to save the farm. I was involved in one of the events they gave out at the farm, and this is a long time ago. This must have been maybe 15, 16 years ago. And it was a wonderful night, and we brought a band back called NRBQ, if anybody has a memory of that band. And they would come to the Chicken Box, and somehow we were able to find them and bring them to Bartlett's Farm to play. And my wonderful father and all of his friends had no idea who NRBQ was, had no interest in listening to NRBQ, but they came to support the farm and the kids and all that, throwing this event. The power went out, and NRBQ did not stop. They got some candles and they put them on the piano, and the lead singer, I can't remember his name, who played the piano, was playing piano on Bartlett's Farm. It was gorgeous, with the candles, and my father and all his friends surrounded that piano, and it was like one of the most fun nights they ever had. Just this pure, unplugged evening. And so I love whoever wrote that, because yes, sometimes when the power goes out, we have magic. And I feel like I experienced that night. So, okay, guys. Paper management is not good. Okay, are you ready for your second one? Please welcome Denice Kronau.
Thank you, yeah. We've all had moments in our life that may have seemed simple at the time, but profoundly touched us. And I want to share with you tonight one of those moments for me. I'm the oldest of 4 children. Oldest child, Holly, oldest, okay. And I grew up in upstate New York. My dad was a New York State policeman. My mom was an artist and a stay-at-home mom. We didn't really have much, and I never wanted for anything. And at 13, I realized I could earn money. This was a good thing. So I babysat for 75 cents an hour. Not doing that now, by the way. All you parents, don't ask me afterwards. I picked berries from my grandmother, and I earned my own money, which was great. Throughout college, I had to work full-time in order to pay for my college, so I worked 40 hours a week. And I can run a high-speed floor buffer, also a good skill, but don't ask me to do it at your house. Strip and wax the floor, scrub toilets, and fry eggs. Those are my notable accomplishments. So because I was working 40 hours a week all through college, I was a C student on my best day. because I had a choice of studying, sleeping, working. Well, I did have some fun, but that's a separate story. So I would often trade sleep for studying in order to get some sleep. But I was also lucky. I studied computer science, and I graduated at a time where if you could spell IBM, you got a good job. So I go off to Richmond, Virginia. I'm working for Philip Morris. And now I'm going to fast forward you 25 years later. I've lived in 3 different countries, worked for 3 different companies, and I'm working for Siemens. Siemens is a big German multinational conglomerate. We made power generation, mobility trains, infrastructure, healthcare equipment. And in 2009, they asked me to be the CEO of one of their divisions. So Siemens has 400,000 employees, at the time, 400,000 employees in 109 countries, $100 billion in revenue. It's a very big company. My company that I ran, we did all the back office processing for the Siemens company. So we did payroll, we did accounts payable, travel, logistics. So we had 8,000 people in the company I ran in 50 countries. And I'm from the generation that believed in management by walking around. So I would visit as many of these places as I could during the year to see our employees, to see how they're doing, that kind of thing. I was continually jet-lagged. You would think that someone who normally would be in Orlando, Bogota, Singapore, Munich, New York in 1 month would be good at jet lag. I was terrible at it. I was tired when no one else was tired. I was hungry when no one else was hungry. I was awake when, well, you're getting where I'm going with this. So I would travel to locations, and one of our locations where we had 2,000 employees was in Bangalore, India. So I would leave Germany. I was based in Germany. I'd leave Germany, arrive in Bangalore at 2 o'clock in the morning, get to the hotel by 3, try to fall asleep by 5, and then be in the office at 10. And because I'm the CEO, everyone wants to see you, to talk to you, and you have to be alert, and you have to pay attention. And that's my job. As a leader, I always tried to be a very good leader. And so as a leader, I knew what was expected of me, and I did what was expected. So I would spend the day in business reviews with the senior management team. We would also have town halls, things like this. And then I'd go back to the hotel for a little while. I'd go out to dinner with the senior team. And then after that, I'd come back into the office because the majority of our employees worked US hours. The folks in India supported the US businesses. So I'd get back to the office about 10 o'clock, and you just picture a high-rise in the middle of Bangalore, nothing special, cheap and cheerful. We're trying to keep costs down. And it's cubicles as far as the eyes can see. And I would walk around and say, thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing for Siemens. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing for Siemens. And I would just shake as many hands as I could, usually about 200 or 300 in a night. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd go back to the hotel. Well, one night, Raghu, our head of operations, says to me, Denice, you need to meet Manesh. Okay, so we trot over to Manesh's cubicle. And Manesh is sitting there, and he stands up when I come over. He has one of those neck braces, one of those donuts on. He's also about 45 years old, which is unusual. Most of our workforce was about 25 years old. So Raghu says to me, Manesh processed 2,000 invoices in 18 hours. I was like, okay, that's amazing, because typically we expected people to pay 200 in 8 hours. My first comment was, I hope that's not why you're wearing the neck brace. No, Denice, it's not why. Manesh, tell me why you did this. Manesh says, well, half of my team was out this week. It's the financial quarter close. I knew it was important to get this work done, so I'm staying to really, take care of what the team didn't do. And I said, okay. I said, how did you do it? And he said, well, I set a target, and every hour I tried to beat my target. Okay, but Manesh, help me understand. Why did you do this? And in that moment, I'm going to cry. In that moment, he says, because the House of Siemens is counting on me. He's one of 400,000 employees. We had processes in place to book estimates. He didn't need to do this. And I knew in that moment, even though I pride myself on being a good leader and a good manager and trying to be someone who inspires people versus telling them what to do, I thought, have I earned the right to lead a company that has a Manesh? Have I? And so from that day forward, I have decided that every day, if whatever leadership position I'm in, I'm going to try to earn my Maneshes. And so you see, kind of the moral of this story, for me at least, is that amazing thing happens in small moments. These are the moments that make a life. And it's really not, is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? It's really always about the glass. Thank you.
Denice Kronau. Oh, that's so great. Thank you, Denice. That was lovely. Let me just tell you a little bit about Denice, if you don't know her already. Denice and her husband, Michael, have been on Nantucket since the mid-90s. She's currently chair of the town's finance committee. Wow. And the former co-chair of the Dreamland board. Before that, she was a veteran of corporate life, having worked for many multinational companies, you heard, and lived in several countries before making Nantucket her full-time home. And I'd like to add that she is no longer jet-lagged. That's so lovely. When I was talking to Denice about this evening and her story, she's like, she had town, I guess it just ended, the town meeting, so she is now actually awake to do this. I understand it is a marathon, so thank you for many reasons, but thank you for your beautiful story. Have you ever had to make lemonade out of lemons? Yes, I'm on the select board, so every day. That came up perfectly, didn't it? Left to my own devices to order wedding invitations, cake bags, etc. Instead of ordering per couple, I counted individuals, hence obviously doubling the number that this person needed. On our 25th anniversary, I wrote notes on the back of unused invitations and mailed them to old friends. So I am still, 25 years later, trying to use up the cake bags. Oh my God. Okay, rejected and misunderstood as a newcomer to the island, I was forced to turn inward and find the self-love and inner strength to find peace and contentment here. We love you, whoever you are. We really love you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to keep going. Please welcome our next storyteller, Rick Blair.
In 1971, having hitchhiked up here from Baltimore as a 15-year-old, my parents didn't know about this, by the way, and I'm an only child. I got off the gangplank from the steamer Nobska, who many of you remember, and I was pretty nervous. And I made my way up to Orange Street, stuck my thumb out, and in what I didn't realize at the time was a typical scene of the beginning of August, a beat up one of those faux wooden-sided station wagons from the 60s pulled up and picked me up full of bicycles and kids, and it was obviously August people arriving for the season. Real nice lady with Connecticut tags, of course, and they dropped me off at the corner, told me where to go, because I didn't know where the heck I was, at the corner of the Rotary there, and she pointed towards Sconset, and I stuck my thumb out again, and I got picked up right away. For those of you that don't know, in those days, people like literally the chairman of RCA would hitchhike to town to have dinner at the Opera House. If you did that today, you'd probably get arrested. Anyway, I made my way out to Sconset with an elderly guy who was a gardener. They didn't have landscapers in a beat-up old truck. And as we came over to the rise into Sconset, not to sound overly romantic, but I kind of knew I was home. And so a couple of years later, I've been working for a while at a restaurant called the Moby Dick Inn. We had some what they would call cabins now. They were cottages, and many of the subdivision developments in Wisconsin, they mimicked the fishing shack look. I think we had 21 of them. And the good news was the Moby Dick was just a wonderful place to work. And I made a lot of great friends there, including some people that are here tonight. Another part of the good news was that a lot of these good friends were the chambermaids and breakfast waitresses in the morning. And not only were they gorgeous, but their parents had Jeeps, and when we could drive to Great Point, we could do all those type of things. In other words, it was a wonderful place to be. For those of you who've never been to the Moby Dick or don't remember it, it's now called the Summer House, and it's very different. When we were there, you might be waiting on tables and wait on David Sarnoff, James Cagney, and Robert Redford in the same night, and all we served was filet mignon and swordfish. The gentlemen and their kids all wore coats and ties. The boys did. Everyone was dressed. There was Madras pants and gravy stains on their club ties and so on and so forth. Made a lot of great friends, one of whom is your MC tonight, Bonnie Block Levison, who was my partner in crime at the Moby Dick pool in 1973 when I was the lifeguard, and she was the chef de cuisine, and her special was the tube steak or hot dog. And her cousin Lisa, who's also here tonight, was one of our chambermaids. And as she said earlier, you learn a lot about life being a chambermaid. But fast forward a number of years to my story, which I'll get to. I came here after college to think things over. And after thinking things over for a year or two, I was still thinking things over. And I was living at an antique cottage called Old Lang Syne on Broadway in Wisconsin. I rented it from an eccentric Japanese lady from D.C. for $40 a week, which I had to pay weekly and send her a letter every week telling her how her hollyhocks were doing. It was a lot of fun. And during that time, and during my time at the Moby Dick, obviously made a lot of great, great friends. And one of our traditions was called the Wisconsin Patrol. Now, the Wisconsin Patrol involved driving around Wisconsin at night, not sometimes without the aid of a chilled malt beverage, and just kind of goofing around and driving up to the lighthouse and so on. In 1985, so this is down the road a bit, I was living in the winter at a little cottage called Fred's Shed, which is right by the footbridge in Wisconsin, overlooks Codfish Park. And my friend Rob Benchley came by, and let's do Wisconsin Patrol. So we were really ambitious that night, and we ventured out of Wisconsin. And at the time, Rob was I think he was a photographer and reporter for I think it was the Nantucket Beacon. And also, he was a volunteer fireman, and as such, he had a scanner in his car. So it's a foggy night, and we're driving down Milestone Road. We've really ventured far afield at this point. And suddenly a scanner goes off, and there's been an airplane crash in the woods. And so we just happened to be literally right by what is now called Nobodere Farm Road. And we pulled over onto the bike path and jumped out, and I'm not exaggerating, the plane crash was right there. We walked into the woods, and we were the first people there. I mean, it happened and we were right there. I won't name the company for fear of liability, but it was a local commuter airline. And and it was something else. I mean, the fuselage was on fire. There was luggage and clothes and everything spewed everywhere. Miraculously, no one was killed in this wreck, thank God. Although I think someone might have passed away later, much later. But it was really something. And so Rob and I are there, and people are wandering up. The passengers are kind of coming out of the woods. They've escaped this, and they're walking up to us. These two guys that just got out of their truck, and what do you say? Welcome to Nantucket. I hope you enjoy your stay, and if I could recommend a restaurant, So anyway, just then, thank gosh, the EMTs showed up and the police and fire and so on, and they shooed us away because we obviously had no business and we weren't being there. And so we got back in Rob's truck and drove back to Wisconsin. And I went back when we may have repaired somewhere to pick up some more refreshments, and went back to Wisconsin and said goodnight to Rob. And I was taking care of my friend Carrie Hazelgrove's cat, Katie Kitty. And Katie Kitty and I were staying at Fred's shed. And, I probably had a glass of wine to calm down because it had been a kind of exciting night. But the night was just beginning. So I went to bed. Now it's probably 11 o'clock or 10:30. It's Easter weekend, Saturday night. And an hour later, Katie Kitty, who was a model of decorum ordinarily, was running all over the house, meowing and screaming. And so I woke up, walked out into the living room overlooking Codfish Park, and realized that it was weird because the sun was up. But there was no sun, but Codfish Park was all lit up. Well, I thought it was pretty strange. I walked out the front door on the other side of the house and saw the treasure chest, what some people know as the sundial house, completely engulfed in flames. And it's a big house if you're not familiar with it. And these flames were just way up to the sky. And at the time, we had a volunteer fire department in Wisconsin. That's a whole nother story. And I called, I called 911, and in no time at all, Wisconsin had a system back then where they would have a horn go off, and everybody on the refrigerator had a little magnet with a code thing. So if it's 321 means, Shell Street or whatever. And all of our volunteers showed up, including Rob Benchley, and they did a great job, and they got the fire under control. The house was a total loss. And apropos to the wine theme here, another person that showed up was a guy named Jean-Charles Bearway, and he brought a couple cases of red wine with him, and pretty much before you know it, half Wisconsin was kind of in my front yard watching this house fire be put out. And at some point during the night, it was a real community. As sad as the fire was, it was kind of neat to be there with all your neighbors and friends, enjoying a glass of wine and talking, and the fire was under control by that time. But there was a guy standing over on the other side of the footbridge, and he looked a little out of sorts, so Rob went over and got him and said, come on over to the yard here. We had some friends over, and can I get you a glass of wine? And the gentleman said, yeah, I could really use one. He said, this is really weird. This is my second disaster today. I was just in a plane crash. So anyway, I don't know really what this has to do with the glass being half full, except that it's nice to have a bunch of really great neighbors and friends. And thank you all for listening.
Oh my goodness, Rick Blair. Wow. What goes on in the off season? It's kind of crazy. Wow. Rick is originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and as you sort of maybe got, he has wonderful walking tours of Wisconsin. So if you're ever looking for an incredible activity, I highly recommend you take a tour from Rick Blair out in Wisconsin. Thank you, Rick. That was amazing. We're just going to keep this show going. Okay, are you ready? Please welcome Jason Bridges.
I'm driving home a couple years ago. I live on Beaver Street. It's between Union, Washington, pretty close to the Duck Pond. Beaver Street it seems like a one-way street, but it is not. It's two-way, and there's not a lot of parking there. In the previous 3 months, there had been 4 houses there that were being rebuilt. They were gutted and rebuilt. So you can imagine the work vans and the work trucks and the moving. I mean, it was wild. There was really nowhere to park, and we had this tiny little driveway where you had to back into. You couldn't drive in because then you're never going to back out. And for 3 months, I'd have to go knock on a door, find somebody to move their truck, and I handled it really well because there have been times, all of us, where you had a plumber come over to fix something in your house, and they're double parked, and you need them to do that. So that was fine. But this day was a little different. I was in a hurry, and I'm pulling down Beaver Street, coming towards our house, and I see in front of me a landscaping truck coming towards me, and they park right in front of our driveway, right on the yellow line, and the yellow line is bright and yellow. And I see the landscaper get out of the truck as I'm pulling up, and I wonder if it hit me differently because it happened right in front of me. And I roll down my window, because the Jeep's right here, and with sharpness and with a rage building, I yell, "That is not a parking space!" We're going to rewind 30 years ago. We'll come back to this. 30 years ago from this day, not this exact day, but around 30 years ago, on a kind of a rainy day, 7:30, in rural Indiana, I was in a car with two friends on the way to school. And we were going too fast because we were late. I did not have my seatbelt on, and we lost control and we hit a telephone pole. And I bounced around that car and ended up with 5 skull fractures in the ICU. When my parents got to the hospital in Muncie, Indiana, they pretty much said he's not going to make it, or he's going to have brain damage and maybe will be a vegetable. And they actually used that word, as my parents remember very, very clearly. So a couple months later, I got out of ICU, and I lived. And here I am today. So that is really good, glass half full. But I had lost a lot. Before this accident, I was a straight A student, photographic memory, going to play Division I basketball. Like, I had it all. I was on top of the world. I was just really smart. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me that. Everything came easy to me. After the accident, it was not so easy. It took me 6 months in rehab. I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to read again. I was in cognitive therapy, playing games, trying to figure out how to function again. The things you're sitting on right now, even today, sometimes I can't say that. I know you sit on it and it folds, but I can't capture that word. I still have memory problems. I have a 3rd grade reading level. I've learned how to hide it really well. I might even forget Sassy's name tomorrow. I might forget Holly's name tomorrow, but the next day I'll remember it. But I've gotten really good at hiding it. So through high school, I went from before a straight A student to a C or D student. And I got into college and I battled my way through and I got a 2.6. But I felt dumb, I felt stupid, and that's what I told myself. And it was pretty difficult to get through. I come to Nantucket, I'm 22, 23, and I'm working in the service industry, and I'm just going to work hard my whole life because I can't take a test, I can't go to graduate school, I can't do any of those things. I'd accepted it. And then somebody hands me a Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I sat there for a while, and I finally picked it up, and I started reading, and I was like, oh, it's like people stuff. Okay. And then I kind of liked it, and I read it a couple times, and I got a John Maxwell book, and I got another leadership book, and now I'm really digging in, and somewhere through book 3 or 4 or 5, it hits me that this is my golden ticket. I can succeed at life if I can be good at people, if I can figure out myself, vulnerability, empathy, gratitude, kindness, patience. If I can work on all that, then that part of my brain can still get better because my IQ went way down and that was never coming back. And so that's what I spent all my 20s and all my 20s working on. I thought it was leadership at first, but actually I was just managing. But I got better at it, And then in my 30s, my wife and I, we got confidence to start a business, a bike tour company, and then a coffee shop. And the way we did those was all through emotional intelligence and kindness. And that's how we taught our staff, that's how we trained it, that's how we ran the business. So it was my life. And then I got a little better at it, started a consulting business and started coaching people to run business and individuals and life coach through emotional intelligence, self-awareness, all these things that I kind of taught myself, my golden ticket. So I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And maybe I feel like I'm pretty too good at it. Back to Beaver Street. I bit the hook. I did not like it in the time. As it was happening, I could feel it, but I couldn't stop it. The supervisor comes out, and they're like, hey, whoa, hold on, we can figure this out. Back up the truck, you can come in, and when you leave, we'll move the truck. And I kind of like puffed up my chest and, whatever, and I pull in. The one piece of the story that I've intentionally not told you about is my 3-year-old daughter was in the back seat of the Jeep. And we get out and we're walking back down the driveway, and I'm holding her hand, and she pulls it and says, "Daddy, why did you yell at that lady?" And it just stopped me in my tracks, because I felt all the shame. I felt terrible that, one, I had done this in front of her, but two, this is not who I am. I'm good at this. I love these situations. I always handle these things good, but I didn't that day. I bit the hook. And I think we all have this vision of who we want to be, and we strive for it, and a lot of times we are really good at it, but then there's times that we're not, and we just bite the hook, and we fail, and we're pulled into darkness. And we have to be open and vulnerable enough to let others, family and friends, pull us back in. And that day, I needed a 3-year-old to pull me back in and help show me who I am and who I want to be. Thank you.
Jason Bridges. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. It's amazing what can happen in traffic in Nantucket, isn't it? Never quite expect the wonderful stories from it. Jason moved here in 1999 for one summer. That's what he said. He and his wife, Courtney, started the Nantucket Bike Tours and Handlebar Cafe. Awesome. And he's currently the executive director of Fairwinds, the counseling center. And he just finished 6 years as a selectman. I think we need a round of applause for all of that. Thank you, Jason. That was beautiful. Okay, have you ever had to make lemonade out of lemons? Yes. My daughter has significant challenges that have destroyed her life. By some definition, she is an abject failure. I think that she is a brilliant success because, okay, now I'm going to cry, because she has faced insurmountable challenges with resiliency and courage, and we salute whoever you are. Lemonade out of lemons, yes, after a divorce, okay, at a young age. I made many batches of lemonade and rose above it. And you always have to look at your glasses half full. Thank you for pulling all of our themes into one answer. Okay. Oh, another divorce. Okay, when my ex-husband, I would have said wasband, but it was wasband, took back the car, and I had to ride my bike as transportation. But I got a lot of exercise that year. And that is how you see the glass is half full. Okay, 2 more storytellers. Please welcome Suzanne Daub.
I grew up in a small family. Me, my mom, my dad, a much younger sister who my parents adopted when I was about 8 years old. We were tight, but it was kind of lonely as a kid. When I was 8, shortly after we adopted my sister, a large family moved in next door. 5 kids and an endless parade of aunts, uncles, and cousins. We got together frequently. We had fun, chaotic picnics, birthdays, holiday celebrations. The youngest 2 brothers, close to my age, Drew and David, used to come to my house every Saturday, play Batman and Robin with me. I was always the villain. They liked to come to my house because it was quiet. But I liked being part of a big family, even if it was borrowed. When I was 11, we moved, and my family circle got small again. We were back to Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners, with 4 seats around the table. 6 if my grandmother and uncle made it. That was the way it was through high school and college. I married my husband, Jerry. He brought me to Nantucket Island, where I knew no one. But the large island family, many of whom are sitting in row 2, who had basically adopted Jerry when he moved here in the late 60s, warmly welcomed me as well. So again, we had the fun, chaotic cookouts, birthdays, holiday celebrations. We had our big family again. After my father died, my mother in 2014 called me up on my birthday and said, "Suzanne, I have to tell you something about the family. Are you sitting down?" Now, in my experience, no conversation that starts with, "Are you sitting down?" really has good news. So I sat down, and she said, "Your father's not your father." I said, "What?" She said, slower, "Your father is not your father." And I said, "Well, who is?" And she said, "I don't know." My silence inspired her to explain a little more. She said, "Your father, when he was a child, had a medical procedure that left him impotent. He had never had sex." And I said, "So did you step out on him?" I asked my 75-year-old mother. And she said, "Oh, honey, no. I've never done it either." Well, this evoked a lot of questions. Did this make me a virgin birth? It did explain why my sister and I had never gotten the talk. But what I did ask her was, "Well, how did you have me?" And she said, "Well, we went to the doctor, and he said he had a solution for us. We could do artificial insemination. He would find a donor, probably from one of the medical schools in Philadelphia, and he would find a donor that looked like my father, so no one would be the wiser. It could stay a secret." Well, the next day, I called the office where my mother had the procedure done. They did not want to talk to me. They did tell me that all the medical records that old had been shredded years ago. So I resigned myself to probably never finding out who my biological father was. About a month later, Santa Claus and my husband Jerry gave me an Ancestry.com test for Christmas. I didn't take the test right away. I wasn't really sure I wanted my DNA on record. I mean, what if I decided to pursue a life of crime? So by March, though, the curiosity got the better of me. I spit in the tube and mailed it in. It wasn't long before the next surprise came. I grew up knowing where I had come from. All of my great-grandparents immigrated to the United States from Sweden, Germany, and Finland. I'd seen pictures. Well, the Swedish part was correct. There was some Irish I hadn't known about thrown in there. But 49% of my DNA was Central European Ashkenazi Jews. The 14,000 distant cousins that I was matched with through Ancestry.com did not shed any light on who my biological father may have been. But there was one interesting match that Ancestry.com identified as close relative. So I carefully wrote a brief message to send through the system to this individual, and I heard nothing for 6 months. Then in September, I got notification that I had a message. So I logged back on to Ancestry.com. His name was James. He had been overseas, and sure, he'd love to chat. So we went over the basics. Where were you living now? What did you do for work? How many kids do you have? We moved on to what town did you grow up in? Where'd you go to high school? When I answered his question of what hospital was I born in, his next question, or next message to me was just 3 words, all capital letters, "Call me now," and a phone number. I wasn't sure what was so urgent about it, that I picked up the phone and I called California. "Hi, James, this is Suzanne. Nice to meet you." He said, "Hi, Suzanne. I think I'm your brother." That conversation with James answered a lot of my questions. Over the next 2 years, we were matched with our sister Karen in Pennsylvania, our sister Lisa in Pennsylvania, whom I had gone to high school with, my sister Barbara, who lives in Maryland, and my brother John, who lives in New Mexico. All of our parents had had fertility problems. All our mothers had the same OBGYN, and all had been told the same thing. We'll find a donor that looks like your husband. But all of us look a little bit more like Dr. Falk than our fathers. And he had secretly been the donor for all of us. Another spit test to 23andMe, and I found brothers Mark and David in Atlanta. 2 years ago, we all got together, rented a house at Zion National Park, and met. We all got along really well. Lisa came up to Nantucket this year for the first time at Daffodil Festival, and we're planning another gathering in Asheville this October. We're hoping that our new brother, Christopher, who we found 2 months ago, will be able to join us. I now have 50,000 cousins, 7 nieces, 6 nephews, and 11 brothers and sisters so far.
Suzanne Daub, everybody. Suzanne Daub. So you all reacted exactly the same way that the rest of the storytellers reacted in rehearsal, which was, what? Exactly. There's really nothing else for me to say, honestly. I think one of the things I loved, though, Suzanne, was you said your sister, your newfound sister, came for Daffodil, and people came up to you and said, you two must be sisters. You look exactly alike. It's crazy. Crazy stuff, right? Amazing. Thank you so much. Lemonade out of lemons. I flew out to LA for a week to see someone I met at a wedding. Sounds interesting. On the second day, she said she had to go to her parents' house. Interesting. She never came back. Stranded at her apartment, I found some old friends lived nearby, so I stayed with them for the rest of the week. So there's that's the lemonade. Broke down in Amarillo, Texas, as everyone does, with car trouble, stuck for 3 days, but learned how to ride a bull. Cool. Love that. What comes to mind is the pandemic lockdown. We evacuated New York along with our 2 adult sons and girlfriends and settled into our summer home on Nantucket. We shared 3 months of a range of emotions and experiences resulting in the development of company for our younger son, multiple dinners, and deep conversations. The decision to become Massachusetts residents and make Nantucket our primary home. Wow. Yes. Okay, sorry, I'm going to do a few more before our last storyteller because you guys were so nice to do this. As the editor of an online news website, deadlines are constant, filling holes in stories, making reposts go back and ask more questions. It's all in the details, happens every day. Yeah, you've got to do it every day, people. You do. Okay, I'm going to let's do one little quick one here. Okay. I used the worst review I ever got. I turned it into a point of pride. I laugh in your face, time out New York. I laugh in your face, time out New York. Let me redo that. Every time I recite the most hurtful line for my own amusement and for the amusement of others, it absolutely tickles me because it has had the opposite effect. It was mean-spirited in the original intention, and now we can laugh at it. And that is exactly making lemonade out of lemons. Bravo, whoever you are. I love that. Okay, are you ready? We are going to bring this home. Welcome Annie Hauser.
Hello. I am a personal chef. I have been cooking in private homes for 20 years. I am so fortunate to have been able to cook for people I truly love and cherish. I also love being super organized, mise en place, everything in its place as it should be. It helps the evening flow. I find that the energy that I bring to people's homes, I want that to be positive and calming and not manic and frantic and running all over the kitchen. So preparation is key. A couple years ago, a friend of mine recommended a client of hers to me to cook a dinner. This dinner was on a Friday night, and the client had called me and said, I'd love to do Friday night dinner and then preparation, some prep food for Saturday as well. She was flying in from Palm Beach with a bunch of her, like 16 girlfriends, and they were gonna have dinner on Friday night, and then they were going to, and I was cooking for that, and then the prepared food on Saturday. So this is like the luscious off season of October, where we all have a little bit more time, and I, being the preparer that I am, was like, wonderful. I'm going to get my grocery shopping done, and I'm going to prep all day Thursday. Friday's going to be a breeze. It's going to be really lovely. So at that point, I was living in a very tiny, tiny, tiny little apartment, and I didn't have any place to prep. So I called a friend who has a rental house, and I asked her if I could use the kitchen. And she was like, totally, nobody's there. You know where the key is. Go right on in. So I do my grocery shopping on Thursday, go over to the rental house, unlock, get things set. Like, I'm cooking for like 5-6 hours, get my podcasts on, I'm rocking. So that was Thursday. The refrigerator is full, food is labeled, I close the doors, I'm like, yes, done. Head home, great night's sleep. I get up the next morning, Friday morning, go for a long walk, do some yoga, so relaxed. And the last thing I had to do was go to the fish market and pick up scallops that night for dinner. So I head over to the rental house, and as I'm pulling in the driveway, there's a black Escalade. And I was like, that's weird. Okay, seems strange. Pull in, and I head into the house, and there are some like cleaning supplies around, and I was like, the cleaning lady must be here. And I go over to the refrigerator, and I open the doors, and it is sparklingly empty. And I close the doors, and like, my heart is beating so fast, but it's also like beating in my stomach, and it's beating in my throat, and my hands are shaking, and like I cannot breathe. And I open the doors again. Because I'm like, clearly there's been a misunderstanding, Annie, it's there. No, it's not there. So I close the doors, and at that point, the lovely house cleaner comes in, and I am crying. And I'm like, where the food that was in the fridge, where is it? And she, as sweet as could be, was like, I threw it away. I thought it was from the renters. And I can't even compete. I fell to the floor, and I am just crying. And I was like, how can this be happening right now? Like, I have been cooking for 20 years. I am a fraud if I can. Like, I've never called and canceled a dinner, ever. They're coming in 4 hours. These ladies are flying on a private jet from Palm Beach, and I'm gonna be like, sorry, your food got thrown away. I don't know what happened. And so I'm shaking on the floor, having some sort of attack. And I was like, no, I've got to figure this out. So I pull out my phone, and I call my friend Dan. Dan is a beloved friend and a fellow personal chef. And he just answers right away, Annie, what's up? And I was like, Dan, to my food. I have a dinner ready. All my food is gone. They threw it away. I'll meet you at Stop and Shop in 10 minutes. And I was like, okay. So I get in the car, and I tear to Stop and Shop. And Dan's already there, of course, and he climbs out of the car, and he's in shorts and a T-shirt and his work boots, and he's clearly just left a job site. And he's envelops me in a hug, and he's like, we got this, girl. What's on the menu? And anybody else, I would have to be like, okay, so you need to get red lentils and coconut milk. I could just say spicy red lentil soup, and Dan was on it. We were tearing through Stop and Shop. 2 carts, just throwing food into carts. And there are no red lentils at Stop and Shop. So I take both carts, and I'm checking out, and Dan's like, I'm going to Bartlett's to get red lentils. And I was like, okay, I'll drop you a pin. So I drop him a pin to where we're supposed to go, to the Cliff Road house. We pull up. It's this palatially beautiful home in Cliff Road, none of which was enjoyed because I was just chop, 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 chop. And Dan and I, we cooked together for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. I don't even remember what happened, other than my friend dropped everything, and he called somebody to go pick up his daughter from daycare so he could stay longer and help me. And he totally dialed me in. Soup was 2 soups were on the stove, muffins were made, there was apple crumbles and little cocktails and he just built me right back up. 2 hours before, I was on the floor crying, shaking, opening the refrigerator again, thinking magically the food would reappear. And not only did he assist me to become the chef, but also just to build my confidence back up to be yes, I can do this. And sure enough, I look around the kitchenette, the meal is ready. It will be better. It was better than if I had done it myself. And I stood there and I looked around, and Dan taking his apron off. He's like, all right, you got this, girl. And I thought my glass is not half full. My cup runneth over. So.
Annie Hauser. Annie landed on the shores of Nantucket 12 summers ago. The island magic and community enveloped her, and she can't imagine calling anywhere else home. She's an avid letter writer, lover of bed jackets and bud vases, lives for the weekend papers, can be found on the beach paths, wandering the moors, or in the basement of the hospital thrift, hunting for bunt pans. What a gorgeous way to end this lovely evening. I want our cup runneth over with all of you. Can I bring the storytellers back up? Get a round of applause. Thank you, audience.